Have you ever stopped to think about what it really means to take revenge on someone who has hurt you deeply? Most people believe that revenge brings justice, that they will finally be able to sleep in peace after making the other person pay for what they did. But the truth is very different from that. Revenge is not the path to inner peace. It is merely another step on the staircase of darkness, a descent with no return into an abyss where you lose not only control, but the very essence of who you are. And no one illustrates this stoic lesson better than one of the most complex and fascinating characters in pop culture, Batman. Yes, the Dark Knight, that vigilante who was born from the deepest pain and could easily have become Gotham City's greatest villain, but chose a different path. Today, I will show you how Stoic philosophy saved Batman from total darkness, and how this same ancient wisdom can save you from losing yourself in the destructive desire for revenge. Batman's story begins with a tragedy that forever marks Bruce Wayne's life. At the age of 8, he witnesses the brutal murder of his parents, Thomas and Martha Wayne, in a dark alley in Gotham. That moment freezes in time, that image of his parents falling to the ground, blood flowing, the sound of gunshots echoing eternally in his mind. Any child who went through something like that would have every right to grow up with hatred, with a thirst for revenge, with the burning desire to make whoever it is pay for what happened. And indeed, for years, Bruce Wayne carried that pain like an open wound, an overwhelming weight that threatened to consume him completely. He could have chosen the easier path, the path of blind revenge. He could have become exactly what he hated most, a killer driven by hatred and the need to take justice into his own hands in the most brutal way possible. But something inside Bruce Wayne resisted that temptation, something deeper than pain, stronger than hatred, more powerful than the desire for revenge. And that something was connected to the teachings he absorbed throughout his journey in the world, training with the most skilled masters, studying not only combat techniques but also ancient philosophies that shaped his worldview. Among these philosophies was Stoicism, a school of thought that teaches that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can absolutely control how we react to what happens. Stoics believe that true strength does not lie in dominating others through violence or revenge, but in mastering oneself, in controlling one's emotions, in deliberately choosing the path of virtue, even when everything inside you screams for retaliation. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest emperors of Rome, and also one of the most important Stoic philosophers, wrote in his Meditations that the best revenge is not to be like the one who hurt you. This simple phrase contains a profound wisdom that transformed Bruce Wayne's life, and can transform yours as well. When you choose to take revenge, you are allowing the person who hurt you to continue controlling your life, to continue dictating your actions, to continue determining who you are. You become a reflection of their evil, you lower yourself to their level, you lose your own identity in the process of trying to destroy theirs. Revenge is not the path to freedom. It is merely a more sophisticated prison, where you voluntarily lock yourself up and throw away the key. Batman understood this in a visceral way. He could have killed Joe Chill, the man who murdered his parents. He had the resources, the skill, and all the moral justifications anyone could need. No one would judge him for it. Many would even applaud, but he didn't do it, because he understood that killing Joe Chill would not bring his parents back, would not heal his pain, would not fill the void that existed within him. All it would do is turn him into yet another killer, another person who takes lives, another lost shadow in the darkness of Gotham. And he refused to accept that fate. He chose a different path, a harder, more painful one, but infinitely more noble. He chose to be better than those who hurt him. This choice was not easy. In fact, it was probably the hardest decision Bruce Wayne ever had to make. Every day he wakes up and has to renew that commitment to himself. Every day he faces criminals who deserve to die by any standard of conventional justice. Every day he feels the temptation to simply end them once and for all. But he doesn't do it, because he has established a line he will not cross, a personal code that defines who he is. Batman does not kill. This is his fundamental rule, his unbreakable principle, the barrier that separates him from the monsters he fights every night. And this rule exists precisely because he understood the fundamental Stoic lesson. Revenge is not the way. It is merely the beginning of an endless journey toward personal destruction. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, wrote that holding on to anger is like holding a glowing ember with the intention of throwing it at someone. You are the one who gets burned. Revenge works exactly like that. You think you are hurting the other person, but in reality, you are slowly self-destructing. Every thought of revenge you cultivate, every plan of retaliation you devise, every moment you spend imagining the suffering of the person who hurt you, all of this corrodes your soul a little more, diminishes your humanity, brings you closer to the darkness you claim to hate so much. Batman understood this, and that is why he created a system, a methodology, a way to channel his pain and anger into something constructive instead of destructive. Instead of taking revenge on criminals individually, he decided to fight crime systemically. Instead of killing Joe Chill, he created a symbol that would terrify all criminals in Gotham. Instead of becoming yet another killer, he became a protector, someone who prevents other children from going through what he went through, someone who transforms his personal pain into collective purpose. This is the essence of Stoic wisdom applied to real life. You take what you cannot control, the tragedy that has already happened, and transform it into something over which you have total control. Your response, your future actions, the legacy you will leave behind. The Stoic lesson that saved Batman from darkness is simple yet profound. You are not defined by what happened to you, but by how you choose to respond to what happened. Bruce Wayne is not defined by the murder of his parents. He is defined by the choice he made after that murder. The choice to become something greater, something better, something that honors their memory without getting lost in darkness. And that same choice is available to you right now, at this very moment. No matter what has happened in your past, no matter who hurt or betrayed or destroyed you, you still have the power to choose who you will be from now on. Now let's delve even deeper into this Stoic lesson and understand exactly how it manifests in Batman's daily choices and how you can apply these same principles in your real life. Because one thing is to understand intellectually that revenge is not the way. Another completely different thing is to live that truth every day when you are face to face with the people who hurt you. When the scars still burn, when the temptation to retaliate is almost irresistible. Batman faces this temptation constantly, and it is in the way he overcomes it that we find the practical tools for our own journey of overcoming. One of the most powerful scenes in all of Batman's mythology occurs when he finally confronts the Joker, his arch-nemesis, someone who has already killed people he loved, who has already destroyed innocent lives, who has already caused indescribable suffering. The Joker is defenseless, vulnerable, completely at Batman's mercy. It would be so easy, so justifiable, so understandable to simply end it right there. No one would blame Batman. In fact, many would consider him an even greater hero for finally doing what needed to be done. But he doesn't do it. He looks at the Joker, feels all the anger, all the pain, all the hatred bubbling inside him, and then makes the hardest choice anyone can make. He chooses to be better than his most primitive instincts. He chooses to keep his humanity intact even when it would be so easy to lose it. This scene perfectly illustrates what Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, taught over 2,000 years ago. It is not the things that disturb us, but the judgments we make about them. These things. What does this mean in practice? It means that power is not in the hands of those who hurt you. Power is in your hands, in your choices, in the way you interpret and respond to what happened. The Joker can destroy everything around Batman, but he cannot force him to become a killer. He cannot compel him to cross that line he has drawn for himself. This is the fundamental freedom that Stoicism offers, the understanding that your inner world is your absolute domain and no one can invade that territory without your permission. Revenge is not the way because it puts you in a position of perpetual reaction, where you are constantly responding to the actions of others, constantly being controlled by external circumstances, constantly allowing others' behavior to dictate your own. The Stoics called this living according to passions, being a slave to emotions, allowing external forces to control your inner world. And they taught that true freedom, true strength, comes from reversing that equation, from living according to reason, from controlling your emotions instead of being controlled by them, from keeping your inner world stable regardless of external chaos. Batman applies this by creating what modern psychologists would call a values-based identity instead of an emotion-based identity. He does not act based on how he feels at any given moment. He acts based on the values he has chosen for himself, the principles he has decided to follow, the code he has established as his moral foundation. This does not mean he does not feel intense emotions. It means he does not allow those emotions to control his actions. He feels anger, acknowledges anger, validates anger, but does not act from anger. This is a crucial distinction that many people do not understand when they begin to study Stoicism. Stoicism is not about suppressing emotions or pretending you feel nothing. It is about recognizing your emotions, understanding them, accepting them, and then making the conscious choice not to let them dictate your actions. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind, not over external events, and when you realize this, you find strength. Batman realized this after years of training, both physical and mental. He spent years studying philosophy, psychology, criminology, not only to better understand the criminals he would face, but primarily to better understand himself, to build a mental fortress that would protect him from the temptation of revenge and darkness. Another fundamental aspect of the Stoic lesson that saved Batman is the understanding that true justice is not synonymous with revenge. Justice seeks restoration, protection, prevention. It looks to the future and asks how we can prevent this from happening again. Revenge looks only to the past and seeks to inflict suffering equivalent to what was received. Justice is constructive. Revenge is destructive. Justice strengthens society. Revenge corrodes it. Justice honors victims by creating a better world. Revenge dishonors them by perpetuating the cycle of violence that victimized them in the first place. Batman chose justice. He created systems, developed technologies, formed alliances, all with the goal of making Gotham City a safer place. He does not go out every night just to unleash his anger on criminals. He goes out with a clear purpose: to protect the innocent, to prevent other families from being destroyed as his was, to create a deterrent effect that makes criminals think twice before acting. This is completely different from revenge, which seeks only momentary emotional satisfaction through the suffering of others. Batman's justice is systematic, rational, principle-driven, exactly as the Stoics taught that all virtuous actions should be. But perhaps the deepest aspect of this Stoic lesson is the understanding that seeking revenge is ultimately an admission of defeat. It is to acknowledge that the person who hurt you still has power over you, that they still occupy valuable mental space, that they still determine how you spend your time and energy. When you let go of revenge, when you choose the Stoic path of acceptance and focus on what you can control, you are declaring your independence, your freedom, your personal power. You are saying that person does not deserve another second of your time, does not deserve to influence your decisions, does not deserve to continue living rent-free in your mind. Seneca had a powerful phrase about this. The best remedy for anger is delay. He was not saying to suppress anger, but rather to give it time, to let it exist without acting immediately from it. Batman does exactly that. When something terrible happens, when he loses someone he loves, when a criminal escapes and causes more destruction, he feels everything intensely but does not act impulsively. He goes to the Batcave, he trains, he meditates in his own way, he processes the emotions, and only then, when the internal storm has calmed enough for reason to function again, does he act. And when he acts with precision, with purpose, with effectiveness, not with blind and destructive rage. This ability to create space between stimulus and response is perhaps the most important skill anyone can develop. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, wrote that between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space lies our power to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Although Frankl was not a Stoic, he was articulating the same fundamental truth that the Stoics taught millennia ago. That space, that pause, that breath between what happens and how you respond is where all your humanity, all your strength, all your capacity to be better than the circumstances try to force you to be resides. So how do you apply this Stoic lesson that saved Batman from darkness in your own life? How do you transform these philosophical principles into practical actions that truly make a difference when you are facing your own battles, your own temptations for revenge, your own inner demons? Let's explore concrete strategies you can implement immediately to follow Batman's Stoic path instead of the destructive path of revenge. First, you need to establish your own non-negotiable values, just as Batman established his rule of not killing. What are the lines you will not cross no matter what happens, no matter how much pain you feel, no matter how much you think the other person deserves? Write down those values, put them somewhere visible, review them regularly. They will serve as your moral anchor in moments of emotional storm, when the temptation for revenge is strongest, when your anger is screaming for immediate action. These values are not suggestions. They are unbreakable commitments that define who you are at your deepest core. Second, practice what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This means visualizing in advance difficult situations you may face and deciding beforehand how you will respond to them. Batman does this constantly. He has contingency plans for practically every possible situation, including scenarios where he is tempted to cross his own lines. When you have already decided in advance how you will act in a given situation, it becomes much easier to stay the course when that situation actually occurs. Your response is already programmed. You do not need to make the decision in the heat of the moment when your emotions are at their peak. Third, develop what the Stoics called the view from above, the ability to zoom out and see the situation from a broader perspective. When you are in the midst of pain, everything seems immense, unbearable, definitive. But when you can mentally distance yourself and see it as just a moment in a lifetime, as just an episode in a much larger story, the intensity diminishes. Batman does this constantly. He does not get lost in each individual tragedy. He keeps his focus on the larger goal, the long-term mission, the cumulative impact of his actions over decades. Ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? In 10? At the time of your death, will you regret not having sought revenge, or will you be proud of having chosen the higher path? Fourth, find constructive ways to channel the energy you would spend on revenge. Batman transformed his pain into protection for others. You can transform yours into art, into volunteer work, into helping people who have gone through what you went through, into creating something meaningful that honors your experience without perpetuating the cycle of pain. Emotional energy is neutral. It can be directed toward destruction or creation, downward or upward, inward or outward. When you choose to channel it constructively, you not only avoid the damages of revenge, you truly create something valuable in the world. Fifth, practice forgiveness, not as a gift for those who hurt you, but as liberation for yourself. The Stoics understood that holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Stoic forgiveness does not mean saying that what happened was right or acceptable. It simply means letting go of the emotional hook that binds you to the person and the event. It means reclaiming the mental and emotional energy you were spending, keeping that hurt alive. Batman forgave Joe Chill not because the murder of his parents was acceptable, but because holding hatred for Joe Chill did not serve his greater purpose. Forgiveness freed him to be who he needed to be. Sixth, surround yourself with people who remind you of your values when you are tempted to abandon them. Batman has Alfred, Robin, the Justice League, people who know him deeply and who would not hesitate to confront him if he began to slip into darkness. You need a similar support system, people who believe in you, who understand your journey, who will call you back when you start to lose your way. Revenge flourishes in isolation but withers in the light of community and accountability. Seventh, always remember that revenge is not the path because it never brings what it promises. It promises closure but brings only emptiness. It promises justice but delivers only more pain. It promises peace but guarantees only more internal war. Every person who has ever sought revenge will tell you the same thing. It wasn't worth it. It changed nothing. It didn't bring the dead back, it didn't heal the wounds, it only created new scars on top of the old ones. Batman knows this because he studied criminals his whole life. He saw firsthand how revenge destroys not only the target, but primarily the one who seeks it. The Stoic lesson that saved Batman from darkness is a lesson that can save you too. No matter what was done to you, no matter how much pain you carry, no matter how justified your anger may be, you still have a choice. You can become what you hate. You can let the evil of others determine who you are. You can spend your entire life chasing a satisfaction that will never come. Or you can choose the harder, nobler, more transformative path. You can choose to be better, to be greater, to be stronger than your wounds. You can choose to transform your pain into purpose, your anger into constructive action, your tragedy into triumph. Batman is a fictional character, but the lesson he teaches is absolutely real and absolutely applicable to your life now. You don't need a suit, a secret cave, billions of dollars, or superhuman abilities. You just need the courage to look at your pain, acknowledge it, validate it, and then make the conscious choice not to let it define you. You need the wisdom to understand that true strength is not in crushing your enemies, but in controlling yourself. You need the long-term vision to realize that every moment of revenge you avoid is a moment of humanity you preserve. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best way to take revenge on an enemy is not to become like him. That is the essence of everything we have discussed here. When someone treats you poorly and you respond with kindness, not because that person deserves it, but because you deserve to be someone who chooses kindness, even when it's hard, you win. When someone betrays you and you choose integrity, not to impress that person, but because integrity is part of who you decided to be, you win. When someone tries to drag you into darkness and you refuse to go, not because you are weak, but because you are too strong to be controlled, you win. Revenge is not the path, because it is a dead end, a road that leads only to more pain, more destruction, more darkness. The Stoic path, the path of Batman, is the path that leads to light, to freedom, to true peace. It is the path that honors who you truly are at your deepest core, not who pain temporarily tempted you to be. It is the path that, when you look back at the end of your life, will fill you with pride instead of regret. It is the path that transforms victims into winners, not through the destruction of others, but through the construction of oneself. So today, right now, in this moment, you have a choice. You can continue carrying the weight of revenge, planning, ruminating, allowing those who hurt you to continue controlling your life through the space they occupy in your mind. Or you can let go, forgive, move on, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve it. You deserve peace. You deserve freedom. You deserve to live a life defined by your conscious choices, not by the unconscious actions of those who hurt you. The Stoic lesson that saved Batman from darkness is available to you now. All you need to do is have the courage to apply it. All you need to do is choose to be better. All you need to do is understand that revenge is not the path. It never was, and it never will be. The path is forward, it is upward, it is toward the light. And that path begins with a single decision you can make right now. I choose to be better than what they tried to make me.